And I'd like to call onto the stage our next two presenters, which is Clive Astbury and Steve Herod. Now, Clive is with Informatica and he's our principal consultant on our cloud business. He's been with us a long time, has a great degree of skill and knowledge. And we're very honoured also to call Steve to the stage. Now, Steve is a Salesforce MVP. He's with Cloud Sherpas. He's a Salesforce MVP. He's one of 4 in Australia with that title. So we're very pleased to have them here to present about the fastest way to hybrid IT. So put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome Clive and Steve.
Thanks. All right. Thanks, Gaza.
Good morning.
All right. So, hi everyone. My name is Clive Astbury, Principal Sales Consultant for Informatica Cloud. And I'm delighted to have Steve Herod here with me as well from Cloud Sherpas to help present. So just a quick rundown of what we're going to go through today. We're going to go through the cloud product landscape. And Steve's going to talk through some topologies and what cloud means and what it means to different people. And then we're going to do a couple of real-life scenarios. One is data warehouse as a service. We're going to use Amazon Redshift in that example. And the second is using a real-time customer self-service app built in Informatica Cloud and embedded into Salesforce. And then a wrap-up with any QAs and so on. So Steve's going to kick off with maybe explaining who Steve is and who Cloud Sherpas are and what they do.
Hi, so I'm Stephen Herod. I work for Cloud Sherpas here in Australia. Cloud Sherpas is a global professional services company with over 1,000 employees worldwide. We're headquartered out of Atlanta in the US, but we also have a presence in Europe and in Australia. We're a global strategic partner of Salesforce.com, but we're also the world's leading Google Apps partner, and we have a rapidly growing ServiceNow practice. Our key responsibility is to help businesses move into the cloud. We have about 150 staff here in Australia, which makes us by far and away the largest Salesforce.com implementer. Now, how many people here are already deploying cloud apps as part of their infrastructure? Big hands. So some, but not all. Okay, so I just want to give you a quick overview of how people typically position cloud technology. This diagram is a breakdown showing you how on-premise infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service break down in terms of responsibilities. So the portions in red are the kinds of things that you as internal IT or as a business are responsible for. As you move across the different cloud approaches, you have more and more of that capability effectively outsourced to your cloud provider. So infrastructure as a service is most famous with Amazon EC2, but also Google Compute Engine. We are really worrying about things from the operating system up, but the provider is taking care of the hardware and the virtualization and everything below that. Platform as a service and integration platform as a service is really something for developers to focus on. So your development team is still working and they're building applications, but they're relying on the rest of the infrastructure beneath the app server, including the app server, to be provided by the cloud provider. So that's solutions like Salesforce.com's Heroku, Google App Engine, and even Amazon's Elastic Beanstalk technology. Finally, you have SaaS solutions. So products like Salesforce.com, Workday. These are turnkey applications. You really just set the user up and you're ready to go, and they're full business applications that you can use as part of your technology stack. Now, hand back over to Clive to take you through how Informatica fits into that picture.
Yeah, so Stephen just mentioned platform as a service, and what Informatica provide is an integration platform as a service. Now, we've been in this business for 7 or 8 years now, leveraging the technology that we've built up over the last 20 years. And what we're really happy about is some of these statistics here. The first you can see in the top left is we're the only vendor in the Salesforce App Exchange to be awarded Integration App of the Year for 5 years running. It's a pretty impressive result and one that we're very, very proud of. Processing over 60 billion, it's actually now more like 70 billion transactions every month with our cloud platform globally. So it's probably nearly 3.5 billion transactions every day. We also have many thousands of customers literally using our cloud products, either from the free data loader some people use, right up to multi-million-dollar international companies that are loading millions and millions of transactions every day using this cloud technology. And we also have many different connectors available. So you can log into our marketplace and download connectors for SAP, Siebel, those kind of on-premise apps, Salesforce.com, NetSuite for the cloud SaaS apps, for example, as well as all your typical databases, whether that's database as a service, such as for Amazon, or your traditional Oracle SQL Server connectors as well. So it's not just customers that like us, it's also the analysts. So you can see here we have Gartner and Forrester, and we're way out in front from both of these analysts in terms of our integration platform as a service offering. The thing here is a lot of these other vendors are literally just doing integration, whereas we have more of a platform, and this gives an overview of what that platform contains. So on the left is cloud integration, and this is the typical use case that people know Informatica for over the years, which is batch, high volume integration. So this could be for data warehousing or operational data integration, using our cloud platform instead of our traditional Power Center platform to build out the integration logic. Cloud real-time is more of a different use case. That's more for either mobile deployment or, as the example we're going to show you, is in something like Salesforce, where you need to reach out and get some information in real time and display it to the user. So it could be, go and get the inventory count right now for what I need to sell, for example. Another use case is for people who want to leave some of their sensitive data on premises. The real time allows you to create mashups and expose that on-premise data through the web app, rather than having to store that data in the cloud. Cloud test data management is, again, borrowed from what we've been doing on-premise for many years, which is the ability to take a snapshot of your data, slice through it, a referentially intact slice of data, mask it, and then put it in your development system. So a typical use case would be Salesforce.com sandboxes, as they're called. So taking a subset of data, masking it, and putting it in your development system. It's cloud data quality, so address validation, data standardization, all of the usual stuff that you expect from a data management platform on-premise, we can also do in cloud. And then finally, master data management, so really building out that single view of customer. So being able to see complex hierarchies, deduping, even being able to see across multiple Salesforce orgs for reporting purposes, for example. Cloud master data management allows us to do that. So a quick run through of what we're going to show in terms of the architecture of the cloud platform. You can see here across the top we have our cloud apps, Amazon, Salesforce, LinkedIn, and so on. The bottom left is your traditional enterprise behind the firewall, maybe some of your databases, SAP systems, those kind of things. Over on the right is the Informatica Marketplace, which is a place where you can log in and download either connectors or reusable pieces of code for you to use as part of your integration jobs. And in the middle there is Informatica Cloud. So the first thing you do with Informatica Cloud is log in and download this secure agent. The secure agent is the same technology that many of you will know from Power Center. It's the same integration engine that's very high performance. This is a version which you just deploy either within your enterprise firewall or maybe on an Amazon server, for example. And this allows you to do the integration jobs. You then log into Informatica Cloud, configure your integration jobs, whether that's for batch integration, for real-time, test data management, and data quality. So you configure those through the cloud browser-based GUI. Then at runtime, the instructions are sent down to the agent to go and execute. So that's the green dotted line here. And then the red line here is the actual data flow. So in this case, it's taking it from maybe Siebel and loading it into Salesforce or Amazon. So the important thing to note here is that none of the data actually goes into Informatica's cloud. The only data in the cloud is that data which you already have in Salesforce, for example. So this gets through a lot of problems around security and so on. So it gives people a lot more confidence in using this solution. Now, one of the biggest ecosystems, or the biggest ecosystem we see for this integration is Salesforce.com. And just to give you an overview of that, Stephen's going to take us through what Salesforce and what the Salesforce platform is.
Okay. So who here has heard of Salesforce.com? Wow. And who here is running Salesforce or using it? Okay. So it's a testament to their marketing team. That's good hearing about it. So most people know Salesforce.com, and they would know that it started its life as a customer relationship management system. So it was one of the early pioneers of software as a service and the subscription model. Since that first early days as a customer relationship management system, it's expanded significantly. It now includes Service Cloud functionality for your contact center and for customer self-service. It includes the Marketing Cloud for electronic direct marketing and marketing automation. And it's also a platform, the Salesforce One platform. Now, as a platform, this allows you to build your apps on Salesforce. This includes extending the CRM and Sales Cloud functionality, but also building your own line of business applications. These applications are built on a series of core services that you can see in the diagram here. There's a lot of them. There's a programming language, there's a extensible data model, there's a complex and sophisticated security model, data security model, workflow capabilities and social collaboration capabilities. These can then be built on to deliver mobile applications and mobile experiences, both for your internal employees, but also for the members of the public, your customers. And all of this work is accessible via APIs. There's APIs for real-time integration, APIs for bulk data loading, including millions of rows per day. There's APIs for metadata examination of your Salesforce org to understand the structure of its data, and APIs for working with the analytics engine. Now, the scale of Salesforce over the years has increased dramatically. As of literally the last few weeks, they're currently processing around 2 billion business transactions a day. And that is growing, as you can see here in the graph, very rapidly, 51% year-on-year growth across their system. They publish their uptime statistics. You can go to trust.salesforce.com and see the current status of all their pods. And as you can see, they're focused heavily on performance, with a general reduction in each transaction's duration, even though they have scaled in size. Now, what is a transaction? Well, it's any kind of interaction with the Salesforce via the user interface or via one of the APIs that I've mentioned. And as of today, around 50% of interactions with Salesforce are over one of the APIs that I've mentioned. So data integration with Salesforce is the most common. It's the norm, not the exception. And of those 50%, a significant proportion, I think around 60, are delivered through Informatica products. Now, out there in the market as a cloud-based professional services organisation, we see a few deployment models for cloud. We see a cloud-first model, so organisations that are in startup mode or even mid-market organisations who are going through an IT renewal are making a conscious effort to deploy nothing on-premise. Okay, so that's everything from their account system, HR, document, word processing with Google Apps, their CRM solutions are all being delivered using nothing but SaaS-based products. Cloud Sherpas is one of those companies. The only thing in our cabinet in the office is a router that connects us to the internet. But far more common for existing organisations, particularly the enterprise, is a hybrid cloud model, where they're using cloud technology not necessarily to replace their core systems, but to provide an agility layer so they can get to market faster and bring themselves into new areas. Now, in my observation, having worked with Salesforce.com and the cloud for about 4 years of my nearly 20 years, my conclusion is that working with cloud technology is always faster, both in servicing provision and in customization. So that includes building applications on the platform. Timeframes for delivery are typically in the order of months and weeks, not years and months. And it's an unusual project where the cloud delivery portion is delaying any kind of overall delivery. It's usually more about on-premise changes that need to be made. Cloud delivery is often cheaper also. There are a variety of commercial arrangements based around usage and subscription basis, so you don't get the kind of capital expenditure you might get in running up an on-premise SAP system. The use cases that we're seeing for hybrid cloud are things like mobile readiness. So it's taking data and taking business processes and wanting to deliver it onto mobile phones and moving onto tablets for field sales and field service staff. We're seeing a lot of customer engagement projects. So this is customers doing self-service where they're accessing knowledge and internal data by way of a portal, and also engaging with each other in social communities. And we're also seeing partner engagement. So people who have a channel sales model, who are partnering with organisations to do their selling, are using Salesforce and partner communities to get a view of the partner's pipeline, communicate, interact with the partner with internal business processes. Now, that's probably enough background. Time to get on to the exciting part. So we're going to talk about data warehouse as a service, and Clive will take you through that one.
All right, yeah, so what we're going to show is a couple of scenarios using the cloud platform. The first is probably what a lot of people here would traditionally know Informatica for, which is in the data warehousing space. So being able to take millions of rows, do some manipulation, and load them into a data warehouse. The data warehouse in this case is going to be a cloud one. It's going to be Amazon Redshift. So this is a data warehouse as a service. You sign into Amazon, use your credit card, and in a few minutes you've got a multi-petabyte data warehouse that's available to use for you. So what we're going to do is show you the Cloud Mapping Designer, which is the way that you build out your integration logic in the cloud. And this is something that you can either schedule, like Power Center, you'd be aware of, or call via command line or a RESTful API. So can we flick to this laptop? All right. So what you're seeing here is the Cloud Mapping Designer. So those of you who are already familiar with Power Center would recognize some of these transformations down the left here. We've got sources and targets. So these can be deployed from the marketplace that I mentioned before. So a connector for Salesforce or Redshift, etc. Joiners for joining sources together, as the name suggests. A filter. What I might do actually is just first, I'll kick off this job. That can run off in the background while I go through this. Expression. So those of you who know Power Center would love your expressions and probably use them all the time. And we have exactly the same functionality here as well. Lookups. So again, doing a lookup against different databases or file systems. Normalizers for pivoting your data. And aggregators pivoting the other way. And then also maplets. So because, as I mentioned before, the engine running our cloud platform is the same as we use for the on-premise Power Center product, what we can do is leverage Power Center code in the cloud. So in this case, I've selected a maplet, and I can join these up. If I select that, I can then go off to my repository of reusable code. So in this case, it could be reusable bits of code either from our marketplace or something I've created. So in this case, there's an address validation. So this maplet would do address validation, add some geocoding information, and this would have been deployed or exported from our on-premise data quality product, and then we can reuse that logic in our cloud environment as well. So it means you build once and deploy this anywhere, right? So it's completely reusable, and vice versa. You can build out logic in cloud, download it, and run it on your on-premise system as well. So it's a pretty unique offering in that respect, really. Now, what I'm going to do for the purposes of this demo is something not quite so complex. All I'm going to do is load Redshift, just a kind of straight-through mapping, a bit of date manipulation, and there we go. So really simple, kick it off, and then if I go to my monitor, what we should see is that there's already 3 million rows that have been loaded. So the thing with the Redshift connector that we do is it allows you to do a lot of things behind the scenes that you'd normally have to code for. So a typical user that's trying to load data into Redshift would have to build out all SQL and build out lots and lots of command lines to do compression and moving the data from your on-premise system into Redshift. So in the background, it uses another Amazon service called S3, a simple storage service. So that receives the data and then does a bulk load into the data warehouse itself. So what we should see in a second, so I'm loading probably, I think, nearly 7 million rows. And this is just with a single agent, single threaded. You can scale this thing really high, and it's also on the smallest Redshift instance as well. So it's really, really scalable. You probably don't want to see this clip through, but in a second, this should finish. And then we'll go through the next scenario. All right. Any questions about this so far? All right. It's going to finish. Come on. All right. That should be it, I think. There we go. So yeah, so that's loaded. Nearly 7 million records in like 3.5 minutes. It's normally quicker. That's why it took a bit longer. So there we go. So
It only feels slow because you're on stage.
yeah, that's probably right. So that's the first case. Now we're going to use this data in the second half of the demo as well. So we've loaded all this data, this transactional data, into Redshift, and we'll use this as part of the next part of the demo as well. Can we flip back to the presentations? Okay. So just to go over what that scenario was, should have flipped through this. We took our data from the on-premise system, uploaded it into Amazon, but none of that data went through Informatica's cloud. It was just the metadata itself. All right.
Okay. So our second scenario is a bit more complicated because it involves Amazon, Salesforce, and Informatica and Twilio all working together. So what we're simulating here is a registration process for a Salesforce customer community that an end user or a customer of a financial services organisation might experience. So they will have received a registration code by post or mail. They'll visit a website and start a registration process where they will redeem their unique code with their personal details, and that will trigger a provisioning process within Salesforce. So their account and contact information will be established inside Salesforce. They will be provisioned as a user inside the Salesforce community so that they can log on. And then it will trigger a background load that will pull data from Amazon Redshift and push the summary of that information into Salesforce so that it's available to them when they log on, and also to customer service agents who might look up the customer's details from within Salesforce. Always press that button. So the architecture of this one, Clive?
Yeah, so as Stephen said, it's a little bit more complex. So in this one, what we're doing, we've got metadata feeding both the secure agent on-premise as well as up into Salesforce. And as you'll see in a minute, it exposes this real-time environment into Salesforce itself. So we'll be doing some real-time callouts. So from Salesforce, you'll enter some details. It will use the secure agent to reach into an on-premise database and expose that up through the Salesforce interface. It will then, as part of that process, that real-time process, load data from the Amazon Redshift data warehouse that we just loaded through the secure agent and out into Salesforce as summary data. Okay. All right.
Okay.
So back to this one. All right, so what we're seeing here is Salesforce itself. As you can see, this what I'm looking at is the real-time designer. Now this is embedded into Salesforce. So as a Salesforce developer, I don't have to leave the environment to go and configure my real-time integrations. I can do it all from within Salesforce and use all the security and so on. So what you'll see when Stephen opens the process later is a welcome screen. And that welcome screen is designed right here. So this is just a drag and drop WYSIWYG editor. You can preview. It will give you an idea, a template of the kind of thing that will be displayed on the screen. And then you just join these things together. So you can see the second part of the process here is to read a MySQL database. And that is a sub-process that will go off, do the database read, bring the data back in, and then return the data back into the main flow of the integration job. Now, these can be as complex as you like. You can build this in a very modular way and link all these things together. You can also, we've done this in a very linear fashion because it's a registration process, but just to give you an idea, these things can branch, they can go all over the place, they can jump around, they can, you can make these quite complex flows for doing, a great example would be call center scripting and that kind of thing. You can expose this as a user guide to guide them through a process. So after it's read the MySQL data, it's going to display that data out on a page like this. And then, when Stephen hits next, a few things will happen. It's going to go off into Salesforce and create a few objects on the fly. So it's going to create a Salesforce account, a contact, a user, and a custom object called My Account. And just to give you an example of how easy that is, all you do is it gives you all the mandatory fields that you need to fill in order to create the object, and you just select the data from, in this case, it's the data that's come from MySQL, and it's just a drop-down menu. So everything is, about clicking and point and click, and not, coding. So it's really, really easy to use. The final thing, or final couple of things, it's then going to run a cloud task. So another cloud data integration task, and in this case, if this reads it, it's going to run this one, load the Salesforce.com monthly transactions. So this is a job that is going to read from the Redshift data warehouse and load Salesforce. You can make this, in this case, I've made it asynchronous. I can wait for the task to complete just by clicking this checkbox here, and that would poll and wait for the job to finish and then continue. In this case, I'm just going to kick off the job in the background. And then finally, using a web service called Twilio to go and send an SMS to somebody, and they should receive that confirmation that their account has been created. And a typical use case would be to maybe SMS somebody their password for the account, for example. So, I think with that, should we flip over to yours? Okay, can we go to
So what does that
laptop?
look like from the end user's perspective? So I've started a financial services organisation for this demonstration and created a portal for them. So this is a publicly accessible website that's delivered on the Salesforce platform. As you can see, it's a custom user interface. The intent is the user would click the sign up link and proceed to the registration flow. So this is the screen that Clive just showed you before, which I'll now just fill in. So this data isn't, as Clive pointed out, not currently in Salesforce. This was pulled from the on-premise MySQL database. The customer's confirming their details. Now I'm clicking next. Behind the scenes, all that provisioning activity is happening. So we're creating the account, we're creating the contact, we're provisioning the user, and now we're sending the SMS. So someone should have received an SMS.
You got it? It worked.
If I cut over to Salesforce, so that's what the end user sees. This is what the customer service agent sees. So wait for the... Clive.
Let's have a look.
All right. Here's the one we did in the coffee shop just before. With the establishment of the account, their transaction history. their individual record, and then we can log on to the community as that individual. This is part of Salesforce's functionality. And this is the experience the customer sees when they log into the actual portal itself. Okay?
Let's see why that didn't run. All right, I think that's,
All right,
yeah,
yep.
I don't know why that didn't run, sorry. So, that's a bit annoying. Can we flip back to the presentation? That's it for our demo. So is there any questions on that?
Oh, hang on. Come back to me.
It did work.
There we go. Mr. Hobbs.
There we go.
Live data load, him as an individual, and then logging in as him. One thing just to also mention, that registration process, that flow that we surfaced on the public site is actually the most sophisticated portion of it. This area in here, these sales guides, is also Informatica functionality. So the same kind of things can be done from within Salesforce and surfaced to the internal users of Salesforce. All right.
All right, so with that, any questions? More than happy to answer now, or we'll be hanging around afterwards, I guess. Yep.
Hang on, there's a
The workflow definition. Can you hear me?
Yeah, oh yeah.
The workflow that you have within Salesforce, is it an Informatica technology or is it Salesforce embedded one?
Yeah, so it's Informatica technology. So in the background, there's a workflow engine from a company we acquired called Active Endpoints. So that's a very mature workflow engine. And what we've done, similar to what we did with Power Center and cloud integration, is to expose the complexity of workflow through a simple cloud interface to make it really easy for cloud developers to build out integration jobs rather than have to use a complex, traditional Eclipse environment.
So Salesforce does have a thing called workflow rules, and they do have a product called Visual Flow, which is available to anybody with Enterprise Edition. And that looks similar on the surface in that there are screens that you can do guided processes through, but it doesn't do the kind of things Informatica does where it can do back-end integration and call-outs to external services. And Informatica's product has a great deal more flexibility in terms of what the user experience is in terms of how it looks. So the designer of the screens and so forth is much more flexible.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
No. Okay. All right.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you
Put
very
your hands
much.
together for Clive and Steve.